So this is our new garden area, our new old garden area. It's been a long time since we've planted anything down here, since before Pap died, 2016.
Well, that's the year he died, but we didn't, there was a year or two before that, I think, that we didn't plant it just because of the shade, and it just wasn't putting out as much.
And the year before he died, he broke his hip, so that was,
Right.
we didn't do it then.
So it's been 10 years at least since we've planted anything here.
Really exciting for us to think about planting it again. Of course, we're super excited because we can grow corn down here. The sunshine, although we're kind of in the shade right now, the sunshine in the summertime will hit this garden all day, which really would be great for growing corn and other things too.
Yeah.
Of course, it looks a lot different. It's because it's been so many years since it's been a garden. It looks more like a grassy yard or field now where maybe kids would play. There are some fruit trees that my brother planted, and then there's some, he has at this end up here some grapevine and some blackberry canes, and even a few blueberry bushes, little small ones on up through here. So it does look different. It's going to take us a lot to get it back to like it used to be. What's the first thing? Well, it's thinking about the actual soil that we'll have to do, Matt.
We're gonna have to turn it over, till it over or something, and get it turned and get the grass that's on it took care of. That'll be the first thing we got to do, and it'd be good if the sooner we could do it, the better. But it's got to get thawed out and dried out a little more than what it is.
Yeah. And the weather's nicer today than it has been, but it's still cold. Still, it was like in the 20s this morning, I guess.
Yeah.
The first thing that we're going to do, that we've already started our progress, is this line of trees behind me and Matt. Our house is up there on the ridge behind us. But all these trees, they shade the garden, and as Matt was saying, even the last year or two before Pap quit gardening and we quit growing anything down here, Matt and Daddy especially was already saying the trees that go along our driveway especially had began to shade. There's quite a bit of trees there, but especially when you imagine them in full green, full leafed out, got their full summer clothes on, you can think about how much shade is on the garden. So even then we were talking about it's like for several years, like we really need to take care of them trees. We really need to take care of them trees, and we kept putting it off.
Well, we were putting it off, and we would have done it ourselves, but there's a power line that goes directly over top of the garden, kind of diagonally, and that kept us from cutting the trees ourselves, or I would have already cut them, and we never would have stopped using this, pretty much. So,
yeah.
But we got that took care of now, I think.
Yeah, Thomas that helped us up at our house, he's already got it on his schedule, so he's gonna be cutting those trees. And we could go ahead and, like Matt was saying, we need to get someone to turn all this over for us. We could go ahead and do that, but we don't want to do that till Thomas is through, because he'll use this area, all of this, as like a staging area for the work that he's doing.
Yeah, and he'll burn all the brush and stuff here too, so that'll be good for it.
Yeah. And some of the trees that he cuts, Matt might be able to use for firewood, but there's a lot of them that's stuff that we normally wouldn't. I mean, it's like Pap says, how cold are you? If you're cold, you're going to burn anything. Yeah. But it's normally like there's a lot of poplars. What else is in there?
A lot of gum trees.
A lot of sweet gums. Yep. And stuff that we normally don't burn. So, and then we have one of Paul's friends who wants some of them for something that they're doing. So some of them will go for that. But this area here, if we turned it over now, it would just be a mud hole. It'll probably be a mud hole anyway when they start moving equipment on it. But if we turned it over now, it would be a real mud hole by the time Thomas started doing the trees. So we want to wait till after that. There are just as many trees, of course, along the creek as there is on the other side. And they don't necessarily shade the garden all day long because they're on the south side, is that right?
No, it's the north side.
North side?
Yeah.
They're on the north side.
Yeah. It's the north side of the garden.
Okay. I'm totally confused now. So why does the trees at our house shade too much?
Because we're facing north. North is that way.
Okay. All right. Matt's giving me a lesson here. Anyway, they don't shade the garden as much as these up here that block all the sunshine. But as they overhang, they do shade just naturally, especially down on this end. So I don't know, that some of them may need to be cut too. And
Yeah.
and Matt used to do that, and Daddy, they did trim them all the time. But Matt may do those himself since they're not in danger of hitting the power lines.
Right. Yeah, I probably will. There will be some of them I cut. I'm not going to cut them all because there's no need in it if they're not in the way, but these lower hanging limbs will shade a little bit, and then they also drop leaves, and there's a couple of gum trees here that drop gumballs in the garden, so
Yeah.
those we will get rid of.
And I'm sure we talked about it in another video, but in case you didn't see that one, people's going to ask, well, what about Steve's fruit trees? Well, we may try to move some of them, and if we can, Thomas that's going to help us, he said he could pretty easily, just scoop them up and move them, so we may try to do that. But at the end of the day, as we shared in that video, you just have to decide, do you want to have peaches that may or may not make, or do you want to have a garden area where you could grow corn and taters and things like that? And for us, we would rather grow, the corn, which is more of a sure thing. Several people also said, well, you could just leave the peach trees and till around them, but I'm not sure that would really work because of that. We want the space for the corn, and then you'd be tilling over top of the roots, since we do this garden will be like a tilled garden. And again, peaches in our area are kind of iffy because of it seems like we're always getting the late frost, so they're not. It's hard to grow peaches in our area of Appalachia, I guess I would say. Now, there may be somebody out there that has just tremendous luck at it. I'm not saying there's not, but from the most average people, it's an iffy situation if you have a peach tree. You may get peaches every few years, but not on a consistent basis every year. And there's certainly ways to, you can build fires around them and cover them and all those kind of things. But again, at the end of the day, you have to decide, do you want to spend your time on that, or do you want to spend your time on the corn? And for me and Matt, it's definitely the corn.
Right.
Of course, one of the really nice things about the garden, there's lots of nice things, but it's right on the creek. So this is the creek that you can hear in a lot of our videos when we're in our garden or we're outside up at our house. So that's really nice. This little area where we're at right here, Pap always had him a cup there hanging so he could get something to drink out of the creek. I don't know, would you drink out of the creek today?
No, not without purifying a little bit of the water. I'd do it that way, but not just drinking straight from it.
A lot of people ask us about that.
I used to on further up, but I won't do that now. I mean, there's just too much chance of catching giardia or something like that, and I don't want that.
Right, yeah.
We also used to keep some buckets right here during the real dry days and months of the year when we were gardening. We could irrigate with buckets. I mean, it would be better to, have a hose system or whatever, but we never did do that, so we'd just keep buckets down here, and we would just carry bucket water over to all the plants when it was really, really dry and keep them alive.
Yeah, it made it handy. Of course, a lot of people's ask us, and it would be, and it suggested it over the years when I would talk about the garden when we were still planting it on the Blind Pig and Acorn, that we should have an irrigation system that you could pump water out of the creek, and that'd be even easier than carrying the buckets. Thankfully, where we live, in the area of Appalachia that we live in, we're typically not too dry. Now, there are those rare summers where it's like drought conditions or something, but most of the time we get ample rainfall.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah, but that would be something maybe to think about for the future. So another thing we're going to do is try to build a little small barn or
pole barn or some kind of little shed down here in the very corner of the garden. Place to put tillers and tools and whatever else. We've always, for years and years and years, we've had to leave our tillers either outside or try to run them up under the porch or, you know, something like that, or cover them up to keep them out of the weather. And we've always needed a place to put some kind of a shed or a barn. Can't really do it up at our house. It's just kind of not conducive place really to put anything. So I'm thinking about building one somewhere down here in the edge of the garden. Hadn't made my mind up if I'm going to build one, you know, timber built one, or if I'm going to might possibly look into getting a like a little prefab metal building and then enclose that myself. I'm just going to see what's available and price it out, and you know, see which one's the better way to go as far as time and as money. But we're going to build something right here in this corner.
Although Pap's been gone a long time and the garden looks totally different, as I was saying, there are still vestiges of Pap everywhere you look. Over here in a pile, you can see these timbers. We use these for the bean rows. I have a blog post that I wrote a long time ago that shows how he did his green beans. I'll link to that in the description below, but you can see them. Just behind them, you can see these big rocks, and then if you look on out through there, this whole little wall here from one end to the other, that's what you see is rocks. It's like a little rock wall. And where all those rocks come from is because this garden area is situated so close to the creek. A lot of times when it gets plowed up, it turns over rocks like creek rocks. Those are like rocks that are commonly found in our Stamy Creek here. So when you find a rock, you'd bring it over here and stack it up over here. So that's how they, over the years, how all these mini rocks here, this little rock wall, how it was amassed. And I didn't even realize this was here until I was over here looking, but there's some tines to an old tiller. So again, that would have been one that Pap, he was always very saving, so maybe one of his tore up and he kept these just in case, or maybe these was ones somebody give him, and this is just where he put them just till he needed them, and of course he didn't ever end up needing them. What do you got?
Bunch of poplar bark off a dead snag back there I pulled off. It makes really, really, really good tinder bundles once it gets dried out, and kind of shred it and tear it up and get it good and dry. It makes a good tinder bundle to start fires out in the woods with.
So we're really, really excited about the garden, about bringing Pap's big garden back. There's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work, add a lot of work to us, but now that Matt's at home, we have more time for things like this, and we're both just so excited thinking about the corn and I'm not sure if we'll do taters down here, but we might. We used to, and if we'll do any beans down here or if we'll do all them at home. I don't know. I'm already even thinking about next fall's garden, thinking this would be the perfect place for a big old long row of turnips.
Yeah, it may be a little harder to keep a deer out of it down here.
That's another thing we're going to have to think about. Think about scarecrows or scare tactics, because it's further away from our house. So we'll have to definitely put in some thought about that, because I know Steve told me the deer were in his peach trees some, so we'll definitely have to think about that. Now, a lot of people have asked us, or not a lot, but 2 or 3 people in one of our last videos said, well, you're already, did Corey and Austin's house sell? How are you going ahead with your garden plans? I'm confused. Well, their house is not sold yet. We really hope it does. But this garden area is actually not on the part of Steve's house. Steve and my sister-in-law Kim, their house, like their, what do you call that, house plot?
Yeah.
It's separate from that. It's actually on land that both my brothers and me own. So technically it wouldn't matter if somebody else had to end up buying the house, but we don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, so that's why we're able just to go forward with this, even though Corey and Austin's house hadn't sold yet, and we sure hope it does. And if you've missed all of the hoopla about all that, my sister-in-law and my brother wanted to downsize, and when we found out, Corey and Austin found out that their house was going to be for sale, they were interested in it. So they're trying to sell their house so then they can buy this house. So that's the backstory on that. Anyway, really exciting for us to think about. I'll get teary-eyed if I don't watch it, but Pap just loved this garden. he really loved it and really loved growing food, and that's how he was brought up. And he made a garden my whole life, and he pretty much made a garden until he couldn't, he just couldn't do it. And even then, he piddled in the backyard, you know, him and Granny did, even when he wasn't able to do this big garden. But he pretty much did it
up till the last couple of years of his life. He done something down here.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I helped him in here for, gosh, probably 18, 20 years.
Right, yeah.
Me and him pretty much did this garden, and everybody helped. But the getting it ready and the tilling and the putting up the bean poles and all that was just, we knew that was coming just as soon as it got warm enough and it was time. We were down here doing that, and then we kept it all summer long. Kept it up and kept it weeded and kept everything picked as it needed, and it's just what we did, and we did it for years. But it will be very exciting to get started back doing that again, because, you know, the last, 7, 8 years we've kind of, you know, did it on a smaller scale in our yard, and it's produced well, and it's, you know, but it'd be nice to get down here on some flat ground in the sunshine and do it like we used to do it. It will be a whole lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I can't, meaningful to me thinking about I grew up, you know, helping in this garden, dragging my feet, not saying I loved gardening then, but Corey and Katie did the same all those years that we helped Pap, and they were like me, dragging their feet, not wanting to weed corn on Saturday or whatever whatever we were asking them to help with. But now that they're both expecting, you know, certainly not this first year, little ones. What is it? Gizzard and
Giblet.
They won't be able to help then, but you know, maybe thinking about the future, that they may end up just like their mamas and their grandma and grandpa being in the same garden working.
There's a whole lot of youngins that don't get to walk barefooted in a garden like we did, and it's a fine thing. It
is, yeah. So we hope that you enjoyed seeing a bit of our plans, even though we're not actually started yet. Hopefully Thomas will be here soon, and that'll be our first big push towards rejuvenating Pap's big garden. And we're always grateful when you stop by to help us celebrate Appalachia.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm just going to go. I'm going to build a barn here. Or do you want me to just get?
Corey, what about a thumbnail? You think that we could get one out of the drone shot? You could do like.
I think the drone shot would be cool.
Landscape timbers were used for his bean his bean rows. And I have a blog post that, Lord, okay, let me start all over.